My name's Lian. I've been working as an analyst since the pandemic. So before I went freelancing, I worked corporate. So I work for this big internet company. So I work as their engineer, but it's really more on the data analysis part. And right now, as a freelancer, I'm serving clients in the e-commerce industry or in the digital marketing agency space. So yeah, I've been doing this since pandemic, and I'm serving digital marketing agencies right now. Sometimes we call ourselves data analysts, but I think the best term really to call us is more as a data engineer and a data analyst. Because when you say data analyst, it requires analysis of the data, right? As simple as that. But part of our work is transforming the data such that we could easily analyze it. And that part is something that a data engineer really does. Basically, what I do every day is that I create dashboards. I get data from different platforms, say Google Ads, LinkedIn, Bing, Meta Ads, etc., Shopify, or Amazon. I get the data and then I put it somewhere called a database, and from that database I transform it and then create the dashboard from that, and that's it. If you have a data analyst, the data analyst would create the dashboards for you, right? In that case, you would have something visual to look at daily instead of just because looking at the numbers as raw, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is very different from looking at the numbers if you have a trend line. Because once you have that chart, a trend line or whatever, you could easily spot anomalies or outliers, like did your CAC increase for this month or this week, or did your CTR decrease for a certain date? So it's very easy to spot weird stuff if you have the correct chart to look at it, and that's where the data analyst would go right in. So yeah, one thing that I noticed from many clients is that if they have so many data, so many Google Sheets, so many spreadsheets, their work tends to be very manual, and it's very manual. It tends to, like, people tend to make mistakes a lot. And what data analysts could do is like create some scripts or create some automation to remove all the manual stuff. So just to give you an idea, for example, in my previous work, we used to create weekly reports, okay, for the executives. And it would take 3 people to create the weekly report per week. You get that? So there's like 3 people doing the same job 5 days a week. And so what we did is that we created like an automation that instead of 3 people and 5 days a week, it's now like a single person who would click a button and the reports are gonna be finished for just an hour per week. So that's what we could do. We could automate stuff. If your workflow is really manual, then we could fix that. One thing that you would really expect is that all of your manual, or not all, like most of your manual workload should be automated. Okay. Next is if you're looking at data in raw form, like you're just looking at a CSV or you're just looking at a spreadsheet to analyze like your business, we could create dashboards again so that you are looking at the trends instead of looking at the raw numbers. Yeah, just making sure that you're looking at the correct data, because sometimes if you're looking at it manually, you tend to misinterpret stuff. So if you have a data analyst, we could assure that everything should be correct, because that's our role. We have to make sure that everything is data validated, all of the reports are correct, all of the costs, the clicks, the impressions, the conversions are correct, and it's also up to date, real time. The trait of a good data analyst is someone who is very meticulous. Say for example, even if it's just a discrepancy of a decimal, we would call that out. Or even if it's just a discrepancy of $5, we would usually we would call that out all of the time, because again, it has to be 100% accurate, because sometimes it's just some misconfigurations in our end, like in the database. So yeah, that's one, someone who is very meticulous. Another is someone who is also curious, because when I was working before, we have certain KPIs, right? And when you say the internet of a person is good, usually pass yung KPI. Now, I had this friend who who complained that something is wrong with their internet. Like it's very slow at a certain time. And based on what I'm seeing on the data, everything is good. Like the KPIs are good. So again, we called someone to go there and everything is said to be good. But then that same friend kept on complaining to me that at a certain time, like around noon, her internet really gets slow. And when I checked it, like really went to the very rawest data possible. I realized something was really going wrong and something to do with that line. So that's when I learned that we don't have to just look at the, I don't know, like the end part, like the KPI is passed. Sometimes we just look, if it's passed, it's passed. But if someone is complaining that it's not good, then something is wrong with the KPI. So yeah, you have to be curious. If someone is complaining, then your KPIs are probably bad and you have to dig deeper this time around because maybe your KPI is not a good KPI. What I know is that VA Masters, at least when I applied, we had this skill test, right? And the skill tests of VA Masters are very not simple, you know? So if a candidate has actually passed the standard set by VA Masters, then I'm sure that person is better than like 80% of the people who applied. So the skill test alone already filters a lot of the incompetent and the competent people. So that's my take on that. Yeah, I've been working with VA Masters for more than a year now, and they have been very close to me, like in a sense that they do lots of follow-ups to me, especially at the very beginning. They make sure that they always do the follow-ups needed, especially if the VA is new. So yeah, they just do lots of follow-ups and they make sure that you are ready. Yeah, they just make sure that you're well taken care of, that you're happy with your client, and your client is also happy with you. So yeah.